Flores' story is one of escape. Santiago Lucero was born in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and he didn't have a great upbringing. Bit of a common theme, unfortunately, for the more sneaky of the operators. His father died when he was young. His mother really didn't do a hell of a lot for him. As he got older and his mother got progressively more ill, they just didn't have the money to cover the bills, and so he turned to organised crime to try and fill that void. But it really didn't take too long for him to realise that organised crime wasn't the kind of thing he wanted to get involved in. He saw the toll that it was taking on the community he lived in, and he moved away from it as soon as he could. He moved on, joined the National Military College. He wasn't too keen on it, but he still graduated with a degree in military engineering. But this simple life he'd set up for himself wasn't really fulfilling. Instead, he decided to turn back to some of the earlier things he was involved in, but with a different tact. Less Robin Bastard and more Robin Hood. The man from Flores is what they came to know him as. This random guy who came out of nowhere, stole a load of stuff from bad guys and gave it out to the good guys who needed it most. He did this and did it well for years, but unfortunately, eventually, his crime against the criminals caught up to him. They figured out who he was, they figured out where he was, and they took the revenge, killing his mother and sending him on the run. It just so happened that Ash was in Buenos Aires investigating smuggling rings when she actually ran into him. Thankfully, a deal was made. He had intel, she wanted the intel, and she could offer him asylum in the US. Set himself up in LA, got himself a food truck like a proper Jon Favreau, and ended up finding and marrying his husband. After a few years of successfully heisting the criminals of LA instead of Buenos Aires, they caught on to him again. But this time, thankfully, it wasn't the bad guys, it was Ash, and she wanted him to join Rainbow. Castle and Goyo went down, had a little sample of the food, and then offered him the job to join the program, as it was known at the time. But not without taking one last opportunity to have a crack at the crime lords in LA. Successfully, might I add. It didn't take long for his talents to be utilised in Rainbow because at this point in the story, Nighthaven were up to no good, as far as we knew, and he was in charge of spying and figuring out what was going on. He didn't find much, but he was trying, and ultimately we now know that they weren't really the bad guys, they just liked poaching talent, much like the scouting division of the Scottish rugby team, unfortunately. But nevertheless, he cemented himself as a really useful guy within Rainbow's operations. And he's certainly at the forefront of Rainbow's stealthy operations because he just knows how to do it well. A one-man band pulling off heists against targets that really did a lot to stop that kind of thing from happening, but he managed to crack it. The trouble is, he hasn't quite settled since he got into Rainbow. Losing his mother in the way that he did, despite whatever issues they may have had when he was younger, it took a toll on his psyche. Ultimately, he'd spent most of his life caring for this woman, making sure he could provide for her and himself all the way through the illnesses that she suffered. And to have her taken away like that, it's not easy, and you can tell that he struggled with it, and still does. It's common for people in those situations to have these recurring feelings of paranoia surrounding these things. It's like when you first get someone breaking into your home or breaking into your car. It's a level of safety that you used to have as a baseline that's now shattered. Because you never know when the next thing could happen. When someone's violated that sense of safety and that comfort that you had, it's rarely going to come back. And if it does come back, it comes back with a hell of a lot of caveats. But thankfully, he's safe when he's in Rainbow. And it will stay that way, as long as Deimos doesn't have anything to do with it. And if he does, well, maybe strap one of those Roteros to his back and see how far he gets. Just like Mute, Flores has some friends. 2 friends that are actually mentioned in his psychological profile, and those are Dokkaebi and Gridlock. Apparently they get along because of their interest in tech and food, so he's a skilled cook after all. It's the first time that we actually saw him was cooking something at his little food truck. And there's mention of Harry, RIP, asking him to make Argentinian meals for the team, presumably in an effort to get him to bond with his team members, but I think secretly he just wanted a bit of the meal. And I don't blame him, it looks pretty good. Flores is one of those few people that would make you happy to know that a friend of yours is a criminal, because he did what he did for the right reasons, and he does what he does for the right reasons still. He took the skills that he honed on his own, doing all this work and taking down people that really deserved it, so that he could give the money to those that deserved it much more. And for that reason, it's easy to see why he's a popular guy within Rainbow. And I like him a lot. Sure, I'd rather he had a DMR that wasn't the SR25, but it's not bad. It's just not great either. And with that, I think we'll call it a day on the story of Flores. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I'm enjoying making these videos again, to be honest, and it's nice to be on a schedule, so hope you got something out of it. If you want to see more of these lore videos, keep liking, keep subscribing, keep doing whatever you want to do, and I'll see you in the next one. Do pobacenia, everybody. Bye bye.
Don't touch that